Hello, everyone. Welcome to Primetime Crisis Live. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me tonight is Dan Torrey.
Howdy.
And beware the Steve Baxi.
Hey, everybody.
We're not sure where Manos is. We thought he was going to be with us tonight, but he is kind of AWOL, and maybe he has better things to do. I don't know, but Manos wasn't able to make it tonight. Maybe he'll pop in sometime during the show. You know, now I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to remember. Maybe he did send me. I don't think he sent me anything saying he wasn't coming, but I'll check. Anyway, so it's gonna be the three of us tonight. Despite what the title says, because I didn't realize Manos wasn't coming, we're gonna start with Flash so that Dan isn't just sitting around bored at the beginning and wondering why we didn't start without him, regardless of the fact that he was running a little bit late this evening. Everybody that's watching live, thanks very much for being here. And as we said last time, you'll be helping us steer the discussion as we go through. Once again, we're going to begin with Flash. So feel free to Crisis Live. Whoa.
That was me. Sorry.
Man. Oh man, was that like the other version of me wearing a yellow suit, like running through time?
It was.
So, my name is Eobard Thawne, but this is only for the audience because you're not going to be dead next episode. So we're going to go ahead and get talking about Flash here pretty soon. If you've never joined us for the show before, thanks for being here. Good to see you, or good that you could see us. And go into the blue chat in the description of the video, and you can talk to us directly through text, and of course you can chat amongst yourselves a little bit. Once again, go ahead and start writing your questions and comments about Flash, and we're going to get right into that. Anytime during the show, you can vote for your favorite episode of the week that we discussed. We're doing all four shows that we did last week. The other shows that we cover on this did not air this last week, and Steve and I are going to catch up on Power Rangers and do a little bit of Power Rangers for you next Sunday. So, all of 2.5 minutes of Power Rangers for you on Sunday. Anyway, so tonight it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's Flash, it's Arrow, and it's iZombie, not quite in that order now. And we're going to go ahead and jump straight into it with The Flash. It was Tricksters, and this is an episode, of course, that a lot of people are really looking forward to this year. Ever since I found out that they were going to get Mark Hamill to jump into this, I was really super jazzed about it. And in my opinion, it did not disappoint. I thought he was absolutely spectacular, and I think he was playing the exact same character, only 20 years aged, as he played in the first show. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but he was a similar kind of deranged in that show, but a little bit more over the top, and he seems to have been a little bit seasoned by time and by living in.
Are we frozen?
I think Cap's frozen.
Okay, I was wondering, because I couldn't see you move either. So I thought you were frozen. But we're still live. Okay. Can people still hear us? I'm wondering that. Can someone just confirm if they can still hear us or not?
Can we be heard?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
There we go. You're back.
We're back.
Oh, weird. Okay, so I have no idea if everybody could see you guys or me, but I gave Dan this great setup. Oh, okay, they lost me. Okay, I don't know at what point. I don't know what. Dan, did you hear anything I said?
No,
Setting
I
you
heard you talk about Mark Hamill being seasoned, and then it froze you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, well, what I was saying was that I thought he was playing kind of the same character, but that he's been maybe changed a little bit by being in a somewhat more cynical world as he lives it now. But that maybe the character, the version of the Trickster that he was 20 years ago was exactly the same as the one in that show. Dan, I'd like you to start us out. Tell us what you thought of Mark Hamill's performance, and if you liked all that as much as I did. And also talk about Eobard Thawne and the revelations about what he really is and what all that is. What'd you think?
This may be my favorite episode of the entire show so far. I loved everything about it. All of I watched these two episodes, the last two episodes back to back, and I enjoyed the last one quite a bit too. Because just briefly, I want to say because Captain Cold was great in it. The relationship stuff in this episode continues to be a little hairy. I thought that the whole lightning psychosis thing was weird. I didn't understand them in the I think that was in the last episode, them talking about that.
It was.
Yeah, that was the very end of it.
But in this one, that wasn't really the focus because Mark Hamill was doing his thing, and there was all these revelations about the Reverse Flash, so it was good to kind of focus on those things, and I think that's why this episode was so much fun. I loved Mark Hamill's performance. He's menacing, but a little over the top at the same time. He does a different sort of laugh than the Joker, kind of like he did in the old show, which was cool. I don't know. I wish Mark Hamill would get more work because he's such a good actor, and you see his range on display here, and how he's able to manipulate people, and you buy the things he's saying even when he's being disingenuous. He's really great. I thought that the plan that they had to put the bomb on Flash's wrist was really cool. That was straight out of the Flashpoint movie. Not the Flashpoint movie, the Justice League Batman plan movie where he makes Hal Jordan cry in a cave
Justice
to
League
take him
Doom.
out. Yes, that one.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's right. He makes him cry in a cave.
Yeah. There's no
plan is you
launching
feel
him
bad.
into the cave. He's just like, oh, Hal Jordan will cry long enough for me to complete my plan. He's the weakest of all. But anyway, so I thought that was cool that they took something from one of the DC animated original movies and used it, because I always thought that was a cool bomb, how if the Flash stops running, it explodes and it's like bolted into his arm and stuff. That was cool. I loved all the stuff with Reverse Flash because him changing his appearance is straight out of the comics when he's introduced in Mark Waid's run. The post-crisis version of the Reverse Flash is introduced in the Return of Barry Allen, and you think Barry Allen's back from the dead, but it's actually Eobard Thawne. He got plastic surgery to make himself look like Barry because he's so strangely obsessed with him and wants to take over his life. That's why he went back in time and was pretending to be Barry and was talking to Wally and stuff. So I thought it was really cool that this Reverse Flash uses technology to change his face to be Harrison Wells. I was really hoping they would go that comic book with it, and they did. It was awesome. I liked that the guy they cast as the original Eobard Thawne. He looks a lot like the comic book version. He's got the blonde hair going on and everything. I don't know that I need to see him in the role ever again. I like the Tom Cavanaugh enough that I'd prefer if he stayed looking like Harrison Wells and he got to play him moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him in the future, and I really like that Barry's finally starting to smarten up about Harrison Wells. He should have smartened up way sooner, but at least I like that he's moving forward a little bit as a character in that regard. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. What did you guys think about it?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was a lot of fun. I had my reservations about the Wells thing, but then Dan and I talked about it a little bit beforehand, and he explained the comic book stuff to me. And yeah, and I liked that now a lot more. I think the whole face-changing scene is actually really cool. And yeah, the actor who was the original Reverse Flash was awesome. I thought he was really good in the role. Not so much the flashback to how Barry and Reverse Flash fought, because that is some really, really bad CGI. But other than computer-generated images throwing each other at the walls that don't really exist, everything else was pretty awesome. The relationship stuff was toned down quite a bit, so I appreciated that. And the stuff with Barry and Wells, it was a little bit on the nose. Like clearly they were playing it a little bit forced. Like Barry just at every opportunity had to make himself. Had to make it known that he doesn't like Wells anymore, and it felt a little too obvious there. But that's kind of a minor quibble. I think it's still interesting. Ultimately, I still really like this episode. I'm not sure if it's my favorite, but Mark Hamill really got me through it. It was so much fun. The Speed joke I laughed at a lot because Speed's one of my favorite movies. And just Mark Hamill's quips about every little thing, like Flash curing everybody, and he's saying that's not hygienic. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was pretty great.
That was fun. I also really like Wells. I think this might be my best one. I really like Wells talking Barry through how to phase through a wall.
Yeah, that was great.
That was really well written.
That was maybe his best scene of the season so far. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But yeah, I really do enjoy this episode, and of course the Star Wars moment of "I am your father."
I wanted to hate it, and I just couldn't make myself hate it. I thought it was actually kind of okay, and kind of fun. Because the whole thing is so kind of over the top in the first place. They own it, and it's not over the top in the sense of some other things in the series where you're like, I think you're trying to play that straighter than it's actually coming on. And as Steve said, some of the forced character stuff that we've had where for the audience and for trying to be ironic, we have to have characters who know a thing that another person doesn't know, play up that they know it, but the other person doesn't realize it because we have to dumb them down, so we can do that for the audience. This isn't like that. This is just them going, let's do some straight, crazy comic book wackiness, and I was fine with it. One thing I didn't care for is the business. So the end of last episode, it makes the news that the reporter guy has disappeared, and then no one's looking into it. I thought that was really weird because Iris is because like nobody believes that anything has happened, and Iris is like, nobody is taking this seriously. Then why did it make the news?
It seems like
nobody's worried about him.
Yeah, it seems like Joe West is the only cop on the Central City Police Force that does his job. Like no one's trying to prosecute West as some sort of lawyer is not prosecuting Harrison Wells for going on live TV and saying, yeah, I caused the deaths of lots of people.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And have been various many other things, including what you just mentioned. It's funny.
So yeah, it's good, of course, that Barry is finally, not acting like a moron anymore when it comes to Wells. But then I think that they retroactively try to make it work better than it does, even a little bit, because he's like, oh, I guess I was blindsided, and I just really wanted him to. That would have been okay if we hadn't had an episode in the middle of the season where he realizes that Wells is playing chess, like says that, oh, Wells, you're playing chess, and that you're just out for yourself, and then very easily Wells is able to convince him that he's not that way anymore, and then no matter how much evidence he has after that, he never thinks it again. All he had to do was not have that episode and have Wells just play things a little closer to the vest, and this episode would have worked fine. But yeah, I had reservations, Steve, also about the Harrison Wells face thing, and I didn't realize that was a comic book thing, so that's neat, Dan. And I'll give it some more thought now that you guys are clearly really happy with it. But for me, I thought it was. I don't want to say it's too easy or anything. It all makes a lot more sense now. But I guess I was kind of. I don't know. I guess I kept thinking that somehow it was like the real Harrison Wells, and first of all, that real person actually having that name and him not making up that name, I don't care for that as much because that name's really on the nose. Well, that is a comic book thing, I suppose. That's very comic book, so I guess I can give it that, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of fun that a time traveler would name himself Wells, and then it turns out he just found a guy named that. Okay, whatever. But I did kind of question, and I'm gonna go back and rewatch stuff. I did kind of question. Well, when he talks about his wife, who or was it fiance, who died. He is very convicted, and I always thought that all really happened and that he experienced that, and that maybe he went back in time earlier, and I guess he's just really, really good at convincing us that had happened, and so I guess that's okay, and that's kind of neat, but then the problem is there are other times where he's got to be a little bit dumbed down to make a plot work, so that can be a little bit inconsistent. But those are my only reservations. I thought that the plan with the Tricksters was fantastic. I bought it. I bought his performance. I didn't think that other guy was in on it ever. I like the thematic stuff of Barry's been tricked all season, and then we're doing the Trickster. I really liked that stuff. But the ultimate plan at the end, I wasn't sure how ultimate planning it really was, right? It's like, all right, here's the ultimate trick. We're gonna get a bunch of people in a room and give them some wine, some champagne that'll kill them in an hour, and then steal all their money. That's our big master plan.
It's a very 90s Flash plan, though, so I kind of like that.
That's true. Maybe he just has these delusions of grandeur, and he's just not he's good at manipulating people, but he just doesn't set his sights high enough.
That is kind of the case with the rogues in the comics, at least as far as I've read, right?
That they're just kind of like that?
Yeah.
They're kind of all sad sack losers, which is the charming thing about them.
The funnier thing is Dan's voice triggered Google, and now it's Googling sad sack losers. Literally. That is actually what it's doing.
That's awesome.
Well, guys, let's go ahead and answer some questions pretty soon. Obviously, we'd probably like to talk about the show for an hour, but we're going to have to move on here in a couple minutes. So let's talk about what some of the audience wants us to talk about and pretend like we're doing the actual show that we're doing. Mr. Batman Jones says, how do we feel about Eddie knowing Barry's identity? For my part, I love it because it immediately negates the whole lightning psychosis nonsense from last episode, and we don't have to ride that out for very long, at least with him. I'm glad we did that. What do you guys think?
If Eddie is smart enough to realize that the lightning psychosis thing is not real, which, you know, he believed it in the first place, so who knows? It's going to create a whole lot of relationship drama, which will be will probably be hard to sit through. But for the purpose of the relationship those two characters have, I think it's a good idea. Just, you know, putting Iris out of the equation. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Eddie, you know, changes his modus operandi at the police station now that he knows.
Yeah, agreed. Especially if he's really not that bright and maybe he struggles with the secret. I think that would be kind of cool. And we've seen some preview stuff. We don't really know where Eddie's going in the future, but I'm starting to like this guy more the moment he's not entangled in relationship stuff because he can be legitimately interesting.
Yeah, that's it. It seems like there's with these shows. I mean, with a lot of CW shows and just these kinds of dramas, and especially Arrow and Flash. It seems like once you get somebody mired in a relationship thing, we suddenly make them really generic, and it becomes really plot driven. The writer's Quill wants to know, Steve, what came up in the Google search?
Well, I'm just glancing over at it now, and apparently just a whole bunch of references to the Idiot's Guide books.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, apparently Sad Sack Losers buy Idiot's Guides.
Kareem Lucid Dreams says that thinks that Trickster's son was a bad actor. I thought he was okay.
Was he, like, seriously his son? I couldn't tell if Mark Hamill was, like, in that performance being sarcastic or just theatrical or something.
I feel like there'd be a bigger punchline, though, if he wasn't really his son at the end of that I am your father delivery, but he could very well just be lying and we just don't know. The son's serviceable. He's alright. He's just kind of there to get us to Mark Hamill, and it works.
Well, the reason... Okay, you still have Siri on, and did you just look up Mark Hamill works?
I did not. That was
okay.
Not
Oh wow, okay. Because I heard another thing. I was like, okay, what are we looking up now, Steve?
No, that wasn't my end.
But yeah, Dan, I'm with you. I thought that was just hilarious and completely out of nowhere. But I think it would have to be his son because it's the only legitimate explanation for why he would even know about that guy. He's been in prison for 20 years. So how else did he find out about him? Unless it was somebody else at the prison that turned him on to him or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe he just contacted some random kid and started manipulating him. But I thought speaking to your point in that, I was thinking that it was a little weird that the police didn't catch on to who the new Trickster was much sooner, because they mentioned that he's been in correspondence with him for 20 years. Wouldn't that be the first guy you would suspect to be the new Trickster?
That or also look at known associates or family of the Trickster and contact them?
That, sir, is an excellent point you're making. Yeah, he should have known that. But yeah, his whole monologue about where he just keeps repeating, "Take off my mask, take off," like that was so convincing.
Yeah, it was.
And I love that he plays it almost like Dark Knight Joker, and then his sights just aren't nearly like he's not really about anything except messing with people and leaving a legacy. I love, like, he mentioned something about chaos, and he has that whole like Silence of the Lambs thing, and then he's just not nearly as interesting as the Joker and his characters he's kind of pretending to be like, and yet that didn't make me like him any less. I thought it was kind of funny. It was kind of a punchline. It's like, yeah, I'm just messing with people. I just want to leave my legacy. I think it's also kind of fun that he's like the first costume to anything in this universe.
That's true.
And that's kind of fun. Mass Sci-Fi Fan says, I wish Hamill would have said, silly Flash, tricks are for kids.
That would have been fun.
Nightwing Marv, if Henry Allen dies and Barry finds an alternate universe Jay Garrick, played by John Wesley Shipp, would we be fine with that? So a lot of people think that John Wesley Shipp is going to turn out to be another Flash somehow. I'm on the fence. I don't know that they'll go quite that far with it. And if they do, it'll be in like a much later season where they're just jumping the shark everywhere already anyway. I'm just saying that because of Arrow. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you want John Wesley Shipp to turn out to be something bigger or to just be the dad? And also, Dan, you and I have argued about his performances. Did you like him this episode?
I thought it was fine. The scene where he found out that Barry was the Flash was kind of cool, but he did a whole lot of sitting in a chair for most of the episode, so it was like, whatever.
As far as that question goes, do you guys want him to be something bigger, or is that going too far?
I don't know. I don't think that it's a good idea to make him another speedster or whatever. I think that would be sort of strange. Especially if you're going to make him like Jay Garrick, sort of. Because you'd have to, because then he has a different name and stuff. I don't know. Like, I think it would be cool for Barry to meet a speedster that's been around that he didn't know about, that could mentor him in some way after he has his falling out with Wells. That could be Jay Garrick. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, agreed. Story-wise, I don't think it would actually work in any legitimate way, but just the thought of John Wesley Shipp playing Jay Garrick, at least for a scene or something, almost like maybe a Halloween episode where he dressed up in that kind of a costume, I think that would just be a cool visual. At least not just to see for a minute or something like that. But yeah, I'm with you, Dan. Maybe getting a different speedster in as the real Jay Garrick would be cool to have.
Guys, we are going to have to move on here in a minute. Let's answer a couple more questions real quick. The Writer's Quill, people keep asking us this. Let's go ahead and tackle it one more time. Cap, do you think... Excuse me. This is jumping up on me. Cap, do you think Barry is going to run back in time and fix things in Arrow? I want the real Harrison Wells to be on Team Flash and for Arrow Season 3 to get fixed. Someone said that would be a giant middle finger if they did that, but the whole middle season has been a giant middle finger to the fans. So this reminds me a little bit of Enterprise Season 3, because there was a really good chance with the end of the third season of Enterprise for some time travel to just retcon everything the series had done so far and go back to basics and make it a better show, but then you would have wasted your time for 3 seasons watching a TV show. And of course they didn't do that, but a lot of fans were like, oh, this would be a great opportunity. And then everything that happened that started the temporal Cold War never happened, but everyone remembers it anyway. So noodle that one. But with this, I don't think they'll do that. I can't imagine that they would go that they would take the fans at their word so far to go, okay, nobody likes this, or a lot of people don't like the season. Let's just pretend like it never happened. Never seen a show do anything like that, unless you count, getting to the end of of Newhart, finding out that it was all a dream from the Pop Newhart show. But that was just kind of a joke, But so yeah, I don't think they'll do that. I don't think it's realistic to think they'll do that. That sounds very fanfickish to me. It would be hilarious, and if they had a better season, then I would be happy they did that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like that's not a possibility. I don't even think it'd be necessarily a great idea to do anyway, because then we just have to rewrite all of the character progression we got in Arrow, how limited it is, and then just kind of start over, and it would feel kind of like, it would almost feel like a cop-out, like, oh, well, we're just going to retcon an entire season because we can't keep up with what we did, instead of just trying to make it better from the hole they dug themselves into.
Well, we'll talk about whether or not we think that's salvageable a little bit later when we talk about Arrow, Steve. But let's see if there's anything else we really need to tackle here. Crypto Freak, is it me, or did the people making the show really want Mark Hamill to say, I am your father? Well, yes.
Yes.
Yes, very clearly they did.
It's not every day you get to write dialogue for Luke Skywalker himself. So.
Yeah, really.
I might be going too far when I say this. I want to ask you guys a question, and we've got to get moving. But I wondered if they weren't keeping Mark Hamill in shadow as much as they were, not just for the sake of atmosphere, but also so that we wouldn't see how bulked up he's gotten for Luke Skywalker. Because he's been all three of those guys, or all three of those people from the original trilogy, have had to do a lot of dieting and exercise and stuff. And I wondered if they didn't want us to see too much of them.
That's
I don't know.
potentially true. And I mean, if memory serves, the old '90s show, he was kind of thin and kind of lanky, wasn't he?
Well, yeah. And you saw a picture of it here, so.
Yeah.
Dude, man, wouldn't the bomb just phase through the truck with the rest of Barry's body? I wondered about that myself.
Why
did that work? Why is it that, like, vibrating like that can make
because he's
whatever it is you
vibrating
want
all
to
the
drop
molecules except the ones of the bomb?
Yeah,
Although
he
that
only
would kind
has
of make
control
the
of-
question why the bomb didn't slip through and get stuck between his wrist or something.
Oh. That would be bad.
That would be very
Well,
bad.
he got lucky. That's, yeah.
He does have control over each individual molecule, so he could choose not to vibrate the molecules of the bomb, and then the bomb would just fall in front of the truck like it did when he went through it. Because you saw the explosion happen right in front of the truck.
Let's do one more real quick. Master of the Z, do you think the Trickster will join the Rogues? Do you guys think, realistically, Mark Hamill will come back? Because if they bring back the new Trickster, and I think they're likely to do that, that people will feel like it's a little bit of a letdown not to get to see him again.
Yeah, I really hope they bring him back, and he's all done filming Star Wars now, and I feel like he'd be up for anything we gave him. He doesn't get a ton of work, so I would love to see him be a recurring character on the show.
Which is a shame.
I think he really enjoyed his part in this episode, so I think he'd be open to it too.
Yeah, and doesn't he look good? I mean, like, he really should be getting more work. He's in his late 50s. He's got plenty more he could be doing. Yeah, it's really sad that we're not putting him in stuff all the time.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're gonna have to move on. We spent more time on Flash than we should have trying to make this an hour show, but this was a major episode, so we'll shaft some other things just a little bit so that we could have talked about Flash. Dan, if you want to stick around so we can well, you know what? It just occurred to me. We don't really do open forum anymore because this is all sort of open forum. But you're welcome to stick around with us, Dan, if you want to. And
I will. I will do some reading in the meantime.
Okay, cool. I'll occasionally ask Dan what his opinion is on stuff that he's never seen. All right. Since we just did Flash, I think it's only fitting, Steve, that we go ahead and jump right to Arrow. So let's go ahead and do that. And folks that are leaving comments in the blue chat, we're talking about Arrow now. So feel free to start leaving your Arrow questions. And why don't we do a nice segue, Steve, from Flash to Arrow, and answer that question I posed a minute ago. How salvageable is all of this? We're starting to do some really bizarre, I think, silly cliche things with flashbacks. We'll talk about the Shadow thing. I didn't like that at all. Yeah. We've been really kind of loose with characterization all season, and we've got some folks in the comments that are saying that as much of a retcon as that would be, I would rather lose this whole season and do something that made more sense than try to build upon it. What do you think, Steve?
I mean, I almost agree in the sense that, like, I wish we could just erase this whole season, but I think just integrity-wise, I don't think we ought to. This season would be salvageable only if the next season acknowledges within the series itself how bad it was. Like, we get an episode, opening of season 4, and all the characters talk about how they weren't making any sense before and that things were terrible and they didn't understand what was really going on with them or something. Just acknowledge the fact that they were being written poorly, maybe make a story out of the fact that everyone got, I don't know, drugged on something and acted crazy. It doesn't matter, but just in the universe, acknowledge that these guys are not making sense.
But
because
Steve,
I wouldn't be able to take
explain to
anything
me.
seriously.
But explain to me how that's better than just time travel. It's still a retcon. I mean, it's still the same sort of retcon.
It's still the same sort of retcon, but it's still built on the progression of its own show, and rather than being subverted by its own spin-off.
Yeah.
Because time travel would be fine if it was from Arrow's perspective. Like, it's Flash beating out Arrow to make Arrow better, instead of just Arrow getting itself better.
Yeah. Exactly. William Parcell seems kind of sad that we're not going to do open forum at the end. We'll try to chat for 5 or 10 minutes if we can, but we really don't want the show to go too much more than an hour because we just have other things to make for the channel and stuff. So anyway, sorry with the whirlwind, folks, but we're doing everything we can do to keep the show going and to chat as much about these things as we can, but not make the show nothing but the comic TV show. By the way, I got Black Canary, Sarah. Isn't that cool?
Yes, she's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. She's a little stiff, but I like her. Anyway, okay. So yeah, Steve, I'm with you. Acknowledge it in some way, but at the same time, I don't really see how you just go, yeah, wow, we didn't make any sense. Let's just move on. But I just feel like I've like a fourth wall breaking kind of thing. I do think it's funny, and maybe I'm reading into this, but I have noticed in the last couple episodes some places where they might be acknowledging it and giving us some kind of fun winks about it, because there's a line where Thea just goes, "I am the biggest idiot in the world," and I know that I'm taking that out of context, but it was hilarious. And she's saying that in the doctor's office, and what I thought was just a ridiculous excuse to bring in the shrinking technology. Let's start there. What did you think about the whole Palmer in the hospital business?
Oh, I hated it. I thought it was just really melodramatic, really cheesy. I didn't buy any of the tension. I mean, it's Brandon Routh. It's the Atom. He's a character we've heard of. Of course, he's going to stay alive. There was no tension there whatsoever. And if I liked him, I might have cared more. But I don't like him because he doesn't have a character. The whole Felicity, he said I love you and I don't love him thing just drove me nuts. That is some of the worst CW drama ever, and they just keep perpetuating it.
Divid22, maybe this is all an Oliver Queen dream and he's still in the pit.
Oh, I can almost buy that. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know how much it would help his characterization, because I'm still very confused about why he's made a lot of the choices he has with Malcolm and things like that.
Bad.
That's still him making these choices, thinking he's in reality. So I don't know. Any way you slice it, clearly these people don't understand this character anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, let's go ahead, and I'm with you about the hospital thing. Of course, we've talked about this. I haven't liked Palmer really at all, and by the way, I was even irritated with music cues this episode. We are playing up in the soundtrack that scene with Felicity's mom doing the ruse.
Oh yeah.
The funniest thing in the world, and I was just shaking my head the entire time.
Oh yeah, that was so bad. I really don't like her mother. She's just really infuriating.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know what? We keep arguing about Cupid. I like Cupid more than I like her.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There's one.
I'll give you that. I like Cupid more than I like her. I like Cupid more than I like Laurel sometimes. Okay, so this episode, I think overall could have been really, really cool and might still be really cool, except I'm afraid that moving forward, there's a lot of stuff that we're gonna do that will ruin things I liked about this episode.
Yeah.
We're basically doing that Batman animated series season 4 thing where Barbara Gordon has that dream and Over the Edge, and somebody mentioned it, I think, and I was thinking the same thing. That it's like Over the Edge, where Gordon, if you don't know the episode, where Gordon is chasing after Batman, and trying to stop him, partly because he finds out that that Barbara Gordon was Batgirl and she's been killed. This was that, except probably not a dream sequence, and it's interesting. It's very much that, because Lance blames Arrow blames Oliver Queen for Sarah's death, it's actually exactly the same situation.
Yeah, that is exactly the same situation. I think ultimately, because I'm not the biggest fan of Over the Edge at the end of the day, but it's still a pretty good episode. It's miles ahead of Arrow season 3. We'll give you that. But at the end of the day, what Lance does with Oliver, that final conversation they have in the truck, there was some good stuff about it. There's some bad stuff about it. I don't know if I buy him being called a villain, but I really like all of the fact that Lance points out that that Arrow really hasn't accomplished anything at all. I think that's interesting. It's certainly very Green Arrow for him to be like that, and for him to be outed. I'm just not crazy about the way they played that scene necessarily. Some of it was a little bit overdramatic. Some of the dialogue was a little bit on the nose, and I think Lance almost. I know he snaps, but it's almost like he's kind of going senile in some places where he just wants to hate things.
I don't entirely have a problem with that. I don't know that I'm reading it the same way you are, Steve, because for me, my big thing is I can't decide who I'm supposed to root for. I'm kind of with Lance a little bit in this situation. I mean, I don't know that he should be necessarily using the copycats as a, the League of Assassins pretending to be Arrow. I don't know that he should be using that as an excuse for a witch hunt, but then at the same time, the police has every reason to track this guy down for all the reasons that we've been throwing out all season, Steve. They know that he was a killer. It doesn't matter if he kills now. There is no statute of limitations on murder, to quote Lionel Luthor from Smallville. And so I don't really have a problem with that. Steve, who am I supposed to root for right now? Is the show saying that that Lance is kind of in the right, but he is kind of crazed right now because of all these horrible things that have happened, and so he could go off the deep end and go too far, but that he's kind of more in the right now, and that we're supposed to still care about Oliver because he's interesting and we like him even though he's been misguided and he's made some mistakes? Or is Oliver right and he hasn't really done anything wrong and he's just misunderstood? Where I'm hoping all this goes eventually, and I'm hoping this stuff can be salvaged. Where I'm hoping it's all ultimately going is that all the lies he's told for all this time were just a really bad idea. He should have trusted more people, and he deserves what's happening to him.
Yeah, I that's where I'm hoping it goes. I think to some extent the show is acknowledging that Oliver has made mistakes, and this is just kind of a culmination of it. At the same time, they really undercut us sympathizing with both Oliver and Lance by having Roy show up at the end and take the fall. That
doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. Let me add, this is the other major thing I want to mention, and then we'll get to some more comments. What really bugs me about this whole thing is you've got that line where Diggle said, and I thought this was really funny when Diggle said, "The lady on the TV is right." He goes, "The news lady is right. You did manage to put this back in the bottle last time." The problem, the thing I'm worried about is that that's exactly what they'll do. Everyone knows that Oliver Queen is the Arrow now, and I really think that this show it has gone so far in the just dumb down characters to make plot work direction that we will get to season 4 and Oliver Queen will be the Arrow, and somehow or rather everyone will buy that he was never the Arrow. And if this whole Roy thing is how they do that, that makes no sense at all. Lance knows that Roy is Arsenal, is the Red Arrow. He knows that. There's actually a scene in this where he's standing there with everybody in costume, and there have been episodes where, or at least one, where he's talked to Roy, knowing that he's Arsenal. Is he just gonna? I mean, like he's not gonna let that happen. So, like, how does it work? Like we got to the end of this and I was completely befuddled because they played that like this really big, exciting cliffhanger. And it's like, oh man, he's gonna take the fall. How?
Yeah, I have no idea whatsoever. The preview for the next episode coming the following week confirms that Roy's going to be taken to jail and Oliver's going to be let off the hook. We know this is going to happen.
Oh my goodness, no.
Yeah, it's really dumb. There's no way to make that work. Even if we have Lance come out and say that I just took Roy in because I wanted to get some semblance of justice, but I still trust you, whatever. You can even twist it that way and it still wouldn't make any sense.
All right, let's I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I don't know, okay, I was just going to finish up by saying that you could do a kind of like a Mark Waid Bendis thing with Daredevil where he can just run around and everyone knows he's Green Arrow even though he doesn't confirm it. But I don't think these guys are going to go that route.
Man, I mean, like the falling to his death and him making it out through sheer willpower and all of that. This trumps that, Steve. I mean, at this point, Oliver Queen has more plot armor than any character in a TV show I've ever seen. I mean, this is getting, if that's where we're going. I mean, this could be worse than some of the Clark Kent and Smallville stuff where he just keeps dying and coming back to life. And
at least Smallville had like a slow build to terrible quality. This just jumped ship with season 3.
It was bizarre, and it didn't even jump ship right at the very beginning. I was kind of okay with the first couple episodes. I was with it. Yeah. I had reservations, but I was with it. Well, let's answer some questions. Ren, my problem with Lance is that I got the sense that he was mostly going after Oliver because of Sarah and not the copycats. He even says it doesn't matter that there are copycat arrows because Oliver being the arrow led to this. It feels like they're really trying to make Oliver the bad guy, but it doesn't feel organic to me, given that it seems like such a huge turn since Lance was applauding the arrow for all he did in the beginning of the season. Well, it is because he's... Yeah. Because of Sarah, and he's just using that as an excuse. And I do like that they at least come out very, very early and say that. For a minute, I thought that they were going to be crazy enough to have Lance not be sure that it wasn't the arrow and think that he was actually doing the murders. I'm glad that he straight up says, oh, no, it doesn't matter that it's not him. I know it's probably not him, but I'm mad that he didn't tell me about Sarah. Maybe part of my thing is that I'm looking at this comparatively to other things this season, but I can buy that partly in comparing it to Thea suddenly hating her father before she even knows that she killed Sarah.
Yeah.
But not comparing it to anything. You do have a point. I can see why you would say that. But losing Sarah kind of drove him off the deep end in the first place. I don't want to take up for it too much, though. I can see your point.
Yeah, I agree with him for the most part. Lance is a really strange character because he's written consistently for the most part, but now he's kind of crazy, and I don't really know where they're going with it.
Oh, this is great. Before you mentioned Daredevil, Kareem's Lucid Dream said, Oliver Queen is the Arrow. Next, they'll tell me that blind lawyer is Daredevil. Chaosm. Just because Roy turned himself in doesn't stop Oliver from going to jail. Oliver confessed to an officer and probably signed a contract, so he still goes to jail for being involved with the Arrow. But you said it looks like that's not where they're going. I don't want to base too much of anything on promos from next time, and I never watched those. So how dare you, Steve, for having more information than me? But boy, if that's not what we do. But yeah, that's a good point. Roy really shouldn't have any reason to think that doing that would work.
Yeah, no, it's a dumb plan. It doesn't make any sense from anyone's perspective. I don't know what he was possibly thinking. It would make more sense if Diggle did it, maybe.
I thought that too, and then I thought, yeah, but there's a picture on a newspaper or television or something, and I think it's really funny, by the way, in TV shows and movies when we have pictures in the news that are publicity shots for the TV show, where we actually see him in side profile. And I can't imagine how you couldn't just use facial reconstruction software and immediately tell that's Oliver Queen, because it's a really solid picture, and you can see his jawline and all that. But having Diggle pretend to be the Arrow, all you have to do is look at that picture and you could tell it's not him.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like no one else is thinking that hard about it. So.
Yeah. Goku134. Well, he has killed people, so it makes sense that he calls him a villain. Well, yeah, okay, sure, but I just think it's really hacky writing. I mean, like we're just going too far. You're not the hero. people are calling him a hero. I just feel like, to a degree, you have to take these things a little bit outside of comic book terms, because from the beginning, we're playing it like we're in sort of a grounded universe, and obviously there's stylized stuff, and you're in a universe where you've got a guy with a prison motif called Roy G. Biv, so okay, but like, in a scene like that, it feels like they keep writing too far. Like, they're not taking it seriously anymore. Again, I get stylized. I just think because again, people are calling him a hero, okay, but to say you're not the hero, that's the end of that line. Like to keep going, you're the really? We gotta keep going with that. What would the opposite of it be? We get it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's overwriting before it's anything.
Yeah, agreed. Also, there's tons of nuances between simply killing and being a villain, and I know the show is not like smart enough to get there, but it makes it seem like he's just going over the deep end even more when he jumps to that conclusion. Yeah, he doesn't agree with them in a lot of cases, but it's a pretty big leap from just killing to being flat out the bad guy behind everything.
Mike says, this is off topic. Mike says that I gotta look this up to see if this is true. That apparently Black Canary is getting powers. Do you mean the Sarah coming back from the dead? Do you mean this Sarah or this Black Canary? That's the only Sarah. Do you mean this Black Canary or do you mean Laurel? Because I was thinking that the other day. I was like, oh, they did that whole cool Canary Cry thing with the Canary Cry bombs. But then now we're in a universe with superpowers. So if you had some other thing that made superpowers, maybe we could do that. But then that would be like such a coincidence that you would get the same power. Wow.
He sent a link, and apparently Laurel's going to get the Canary Cry. We are going to see Mirror Master at some point, and pretty soon Caitlin Snow might become Killer Frost.
Oh, all right. Well, Steve, what else do you want to mention about this before we go on? We're running behind, so we gotta get moving.
Yeah, just really quickly, flashbacks are terrible. Shadow's twin sister, no. Just no.
Man, because we hadn't exhausted all of the soap opera cliches yet this season, so we better throw that one in there. And you know what? Even worse than her having a twin. I mean, yeah, people can have twins, okay, but obviously it's just an excuse to get the actress back and to have a what the moment an episode before. How many things are we doing, Steve? Just for a moment of what, and then they never pay off, right? Like it's never a satisfying kind of payoff. So. Worse than that is that he's walking through a crowd and just conveniently, and he just happens to be in China, and then she's from there. Like, I mean, I just think that's hilarious because that had really nothing to do with why he was there. And then like he's walking through a crowd, and wait, you look like Shadow, and oh man, how do I take that seriously? That's hilarious.
It's bad.
Mean, she gave a good performance. She always does, but.
See, I'm not sure if I agree with that. I felt like she was playing it really stiff, really, really stiff. Like she was just kind of reading her lines from a prompter and they were done with it.
The writer's quill says, why should Lance go by what Roz told him who the Arrow was? He's the leader of an international terrorist organization, for goodness sakes. I can see why you'd say that, but who else could it possibly be? I mean, like, okay, you know that Roy, who is the Red Arrow, dated his sister. And you know that your daughter, who used to date him, is the second Black Canary, and you know about, I don't know if he knows about Diggle, but the big one is, you know Felicity works for him. So, I mean, like, yeah.
And then you also know that Sarah dated him, and she was the Black Canary simultaneously.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm glad that they kind of did the Jim Gordon, I knew it all along, but it didn't matter thing. That was okay. I didn't have a huge problem with it, but to your point, even if he wasn't sure, he had every reason to go in and interrogate Oliver, pretend like he was sure, and then see what Oliver did. And I'm not saying that's what he did, but he could have pretended and done exactly what he did, and then Oliver comes out and pretty much just says, "I'm the Arrow," and then you're good. So I don't have any problem with it. All right, well, we're depressed now, and that's what happens when we talk about Arrow this season. Let's move on, shall we?
Quality.
we're going to talk now a little bit about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the episode, and so feel free to start writing questions and comments about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The episode in question is One Door Closes. Boy, they're great with episode titles in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Really love them. That is, of course, a reference to, it might be a double entendre thing, they love that too, but it's mostly a reference to Winter Soldier and the end of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the beginning of not one but two S.H.I.E.L.D.s. Steve, what did you think of the flashbacks? Did you think they added enough? And how do you feel about the pacing right now? Because I feel like it's a little slow. I honestly don't have a great deal to say about this one.
Yeah, this show is really dreadfully slow compared to how fast it was for the first couple episodes this season. But I actually did really enjoy the flashbacks. Those flashbacks, to me, we should just confirm that show. Get Edward James Olmos on screen every week, and his S.H.I.E.L.D. is 1,000 times more interesting than what we've gotten with Coulson in a season and a half. Those couple moments I thought were really, really good. That whole idea that the first time he made a decision like that, he was completely wrong, everyone against him, and then they make him the leader of their S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's kind of a democracy. The interesting kind of political parallels between the Nick Fury S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Edward James Olmos S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought all that stuff was legitimately fascinating and interesting, and I like all of the actors. None of them had to grow on me. The stuff with Mac was really good in the flashbacks. It's just instantly a lot more likable than the stuff with Coulson's team.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, the whole thing about their team being more interesting, character-wise, maybe. Olmos is pretty much just playing the exact same character, or at least he's playing it the same way as he played his character in Battlestar Galactica. But it's working. He feels like a real S.H.I.E.L.D. agent to me, more than a lot of these other folks have in the show. But I think a little bit of issue with the team itself is more interesting because, like I said last time, what have they been doing except just reconnaissance on Coulson? I feel like this should have been looming more in the background the whole season. And I don't know if this was an afterthought thing or if it was just they felt like they had to wrap up more of the superpower stuff and get Skye to where she is now before they could start introducing it. I just don't understand why they waited this long to reveal themselves. And frankly, there's a part of me that, and I'm on the fence about it, there's a part of me that's not sure why they didn't just go to Coulson and say, we don't like the way you're running things, here's how we think it should be done, you either join us or we're gonna stop you. I really don't understand what all of this really long. What am I missing? I just don't understand what all this. To me, it seems kind of pointless. This really long con, because apparently Mac and Bobby were there all this time just to spy on them for real S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Yeah.
So explain to me why they didn't try to stop all of the going to the city stuff and all of that. Why didn't they take over then? I don't know why they're revealing themselves now.
Or take over back when Coulson's team was barely able to steal a Quinjet, when they had no capabilities whatsoever. Now when their team is back together and working effectively, and they've got resources, why attack now? It does feel more and more like an afterthought. Like, these guys should have been there from episode 1.
Yeah, it might have been interesting to see them in the background doing other stuff and get some paralleling and some contrast between the two teams and how they do business, because essentially all it boils down to, and I can't decide if it's just too simple and it's not and it's not layered enough yet, where it's kind of just, okay, one of these guys or one of these teams is headed by one guy who compartmentalizes, and the other team is run more by committee. And if we got to see more of the two teams doing different things and we see the pros and cons to each of those, that could be really interesting, but we haven't really had that.
No, not yet. The idea is immediately interesting, though. I feel like that's just a great place to take it, considering everything Winter Soldier is about. It feels really counterintuitive for Coulson to revive S.H.I.E.L.D. after Winter Soldier the exact same way Nick Fury did it.
Especially because he really acted like he was going to be different.
Exactly.
The whole mood of the thing at the end was, this is our chance to do it right. I don't really buy, unless there's something we don't know about, because this show is notorious. At least, well, maybe not notorious. Maybe I'm the only one talking about it. But for me, this show is really interesting in that it keeps doing things that I'm confused about, and then eventually it all kind of comes together and makes more sense. Where we're at right now, just for the moment, is I feel like Coulson is being really naive when he says things like it wasn't Hydra, or it wasn't the Secrets. It wasn't Fury's Secrets that brought down S.H.I.E.L.D. It was Hydra. It's like, well, no, it's kind of a mix of both. Would Fury have been who he was if Hydra hadn't been there the whole time? Wasn't he somewhat corrupt? Wasn't that whole, no matter whose side you were on, wasn't that whole institution corrupted by Hydra being there and nobody knowing about it? Like, right now, I'm on Almost's side. And that's a problem, because I really feel like, we talked with Arrow. I don't know whose side I'm supposed to be on. I know precisely whose side I'm supposed to be on with this show, and I'm not. It wants me. I think. I could be wrong, but when we get to the very end and we've got the Stinger thing, are they in Tahiti? When we get to the Stinger thing, and you've got Hunter, who I'm suddenly liking a lot more, and well, not suddenly, but have been for a while now, and Coulson having drinks, I'm like, you guys really want me to be with you right now, and I don't understand that. I think Almost is kind of more right now. I mean, I don't think it's right that you can run an organization like that totally by committee, but they're not. They do have a man in charge.
Yeah, I mean, he mentions to Coulson that Project Insight was Fury's idea. Like, how does that not completely shut down what Coulson's trying to say about his team being better? Like, there's not really a lot of counter-arguments to be made after that when you say that S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't fall because of secrets.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And Almost, I'm so happy that he's here, because he has finally helped to bring in some of that identity stuff I've been looking for in the season with Coulson, where he says, we don't know who this guy is. He was brought back from the dead, and he's not the man he was, he says, even 2 years ago, and we can't trust him because we don't know what his motivations are. He was used as a vessel for an alien species. Who is he now? Why are we following him? Well, the problem is, I still don't really have an answer to that question on the other side. Like the other side is not making much of an argument right now. There's a debate here, and they're not bad guys, but like the side I'm not supposed to be rooting for is winning right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if we got more of a sense that that Coulson's operation was falling apart, then I could understand sympathizing with Almost a little bit more. That maybe that he can just absorb them into it and then kind of drive some of these themes home. But it still feels a lot like last season, where the show didn't get started until well over halfway through, and it makes everything else feel kind of boring or lackluster, and all these questions they're bringing up should have been there 16, 17 episodes ago.
William Parcell is kind of summing all this up for us when he asks, why are the two S.H.I.E.L.D.s unwilling to work together? The great question. Coulson is not making any kind of an argument for why he has to have these secrets and keep things compartmentalized. And I even think that Almost kind of has a good point that he's on kind of his own one-man crusade, and that's what gets Hartley killed.
Yeah, no, agreed. Coulson hasn't necessarily been the best leader. And we don't really talk about that. We just keep acting like what he's doing is the right way because he's the main character, kind of like Arrow.
The writer's quill says, Cat, my problem with the new S.H.I.E.L.D. is that they take over Coulson's S.H.I.E.L.D. by force, defeating their opening argument. What do you think about that, Steve?
I'm not sure if I 100% agree with that, because how else would they take out the other S.H.I.E.L.D.? I mean, they could just work together. That's the bigger problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what he's saying is, they should all try to just get along and find some sort of compromise. But where I can kind of see where Almost is coming from, again, I don't understand why it has to be this big elaborate takeover. I don't know why you don't just walk into the office and say, okay, prove to us that you're on our side, or we're gonna have to stop you. I think what this guy might be talking about, and if he is kind of a good point, is that, well, they control everything, and Almost in his people, their whole problem is S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to control everything. So is it really fair for them to just walk in and say, this is how it's going to be? Why can't we have a discussion and an argument about it first? But yeah, I don't know why we can't come up with some kind of compromise.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with disabling the controllers before talking to them. It's just the fact that they never actually talk about anything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're hardcore in Coulson. Coulson is simply the problem because first of all, Coulson is trying to trying to deal with Hydra. Coulson is trying to deal with the evil superpowered supervillains. I mean, like, he may not have the most altruistic motives for doing it. It might be more because there was some alien writing in his brain. But what is the other Shield trying to do except for get them? Steve, when they finally talk, I didn't notice this until the second time. Coulson is zip tied.
Oh yeah, that's true. He is.
Why?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Give him a chance. And then he's even like, well, yeah, you're partly true. You did sort of save the world, but forget all that for a moment.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. That requires some more discussion, and I mean, at the end of the day, the idea of a shield running by democracy is cool, but I think I'm actually coming around to your point and the commenter's point when I say they do kind of defeat their argument when they don't give anyone a chance to have input.
I have to apologize for a minute. Writer's Quill is a lady. I'm very sorry about that. She said also I'm a she. Sorry about that. And thanks for your comment. She said that I made her point. So yay, we're in agreement. Yeah, Rocket says Coulson, and in all caps no less. Coulson mentions that they should have talked to them about their issues with him. Yeah, he does. But that's the thing is that I feel like that's the one thing that is supposed to make me be on his side. That like we're not supposed to like their methods. But then they're all about like being transparent and stuff. I just find the whole thing kind of awkward.
Yeah, it screams of no foresight at all.
Yeah.
I feel like there was nothing leading to this or even referencing it for the first half of the season. This entire second half just feels like a different show than the first half of the season to me.
It's really, yeah, and that's really kind of odd. There's also I don't know. I've also got a criticism about the way things go down at the end of that whole thing in the flashbacks, where Bobby kind of changes their minds really quickly. And
yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's kind of this desperate situation where it's like, okay, what are we going to do? We got to make a split-second decision. But it seems like 4 of the 5 of them, or however many there were, are in agreement that we're going to follow Fury's orders. And all of a sudden she has a speech, and everybody's like, well, I guess we're going to do what you want to do. We don't have any time to do anything else. What I have, but that's not really my criticism. My criticism is this Bobby's whole idea of we can't do things Fury's way is she came up with it completely independently from anybody else. This is her idea. This new Shield is her baby. Someone explain to me why she is not the director. Almost didn't even want it, and like maybe he outranked her before, but that's a moot point because she says we can't do things the same way. We got to scrap everything. Okay, scrap everything. The old ranking system doesn't even matter anymore. So why isn't she in charge? And maybe they'll explain that later on. Maybe it's that he just has more of a leadership he has more leadership chops. Maybe it's that he's older and he would prefer the desk job. Maybe she needs to be in the field. I don't know what it is, but I wondered about it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that's something that we could have understood better if we knew her character more from the past few episodes.
Casey in the comments just said the exact same thing I said. Why isn't she the one in charge? That's great.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, this episode just brought up interesting things that could have made a better show, but it's not altogether a good episode, and it just kind of makes me like the season a little bit less.
See, I'm not there yet. I have a very wait-and-see thing with this right now. I just got to see where it's going. My biggest criticism right now is that we're not getting enough done in an episode. The last 2 episodes could have been 1 episode, and then probably could have had even a 3rd act. I think that there is, and again, maybe things will matter. Certain things that we saw that I don't know will matter later. But right now, I feel like we have some scenes that are just going on really long and not revealing anything. Where like it's kind of for the sake of tension and stuff, but it's kind of wasting too much time. I just feel like we're showing a lot of pieces that don't matter. Like we've got to see every part of certain people's day and stuff, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree. Does that work for you with the Sky scenes too? Because I felt like by the end of the day, those scenes, everything with Sky, I just didn't care. I just wanted more going on somewhere there.
Um, yeah, I mean, it seemed like kind of a typical you are important and you need to be free, kind of. I just, I mean, we spent more time on it than maybe we needed to. I'm not disinterested though. I think the guy with no eyes is potentially really interesting. But we just gotta see where it's going. I like that we learn more about him, and I like that we know now that that he can see, but kind of differently. And he seems to be kind of that evil team's Magneto, and that could be cool.
Yeah, no, that's true. I like that actor a lot. I think his dialogue delivery and stuff is really cool. He's got a nice voice.
Rocket disagrees with me and says that a lot happened this episode. It just didn't keep my attention. Like the first time around, I had a little bit of a hard time focusing on it. The second time, I almost fell asleep.
Yeah, I kind of have the same issue. It's really hard for me to just keep watching these episodes without doing something else in the background.
Casey says, "Hey Cap, I'm confused. If the new Shield wasn't trying to kill Sky, why did that one guy try to shoot her?" Well, remember that they were using icers.
Yeah.
So he tried to shoot her so that they could capture her and not kill her. All right, let's go ahead and move on now to our final show of the evening, and we are already approaching or over an hour. So we'll do this briefly. I don't think there'll be a ton to say, but we'll go ahead and move on now to iZombie. And today's our episode this week from iZombie was the Exterminator. Steve, once again, I liked it a lot. I think that they're heading in a really neat direction. I think every episode so far has been better than the last, and still loving the identity stuff. I thought it was really cool to have her eat a brain of a person that makes her feel like a metaphorical zombie while she's a zombie, and then deal with what actually happens to zombies that don't eat brains often enough, and then parallel that with what's going on with her. I thought it was a fabulous script.
Yeah, that was all wonderfully layered. I loved all that. I love her character. I love the actress in general, and they always give her the right number of quips and stuff. Like she's sarcastic, a lot like Veronica Mars, but even when she's got that other zombie brain in her and she doesn't feel things, she's still kind of the same person. And it's interesting to see that lack of empathy doesn't necessarily make you a different person, and it's all about the consequence of the people you deal with. I thought all that was really interesting. I like her roommate a lot more now, because she was kind of bland before, but I do like their relationship a little bit.
I think it's really convenient, though, that she's in the business she's in.
Well, I mean, we've established that both of them were kind of the same caliber of complete and utter go-getters, completely goal-oriented, so I can see why they'd get along with each other easily, and why those two would be partners as opposed to someone that isn't in a similar career field, doctor, lawyer.
Well, no, that's true, but she was just a regular doctor before, and now she happens to be working with the police because somebody thinks that she's a psychic, and then her roommate just happens to be an investigator.
Prosecutor,
So
yeah.
a prosecutor. So I don't know. I thought that was a little convenient. It's not a big deal, but.
Yeah, I mean, no more convenient than every episode she gets a brain that completely deals with thematically what she's doing for that episode.
Well, no, that's true, but that's more of like a story kind of, I don't know, that's more of like a thematic convenience.
That's fair.
Where when it's, I don't know, I think it's much more of a problem, and it feels more contrived when it's, because that's kind of the conceit for the show, right? Is like if you're not okay with that, go home. You know what I mean? Like that's the conceit for the show, is that each episode she's gonna eat a brain, and also you could argue that when she eats a brain, she's dealing with that thematic thing for the episode partly because of the brain she ate.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I mean, this time she found a zombie, but I don't think that's too coincidental because she found a zombie last episode too, and that happened recently, and so these zombies are all starting to pop up. They're doing a pretty good job of making that not feel too crazy story contrived. You're writing a story, you're writing genre fiction. There's always going to be a certain amount of contrivance, and it's all about just sweeping as much of that under the rug as possible, and making it feel as. What my point is, they're trying, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, the conveniences don't bother me. It's just because the scripts are so tight, the tiniest things could just kind of get under you just because everything else is working so well, kind of like Constantine.
Two and a Half Doctor has a great question. Hey Cap, what will happen when people find out there are zombies?
Good question. I don't have a sense of who everyone else in this world is. Is this kind of like an over-the-top world? Is everyone else kind of surreal? It's interesting to see what their reactions will be to zombies. If potentially they're more open to it, or they're more frightened, or like what the state of that world is. Because in Veronica Mars, that show did a lot with the city and the people and the type of people that lived in it. And every show this guy does deals with those kinds of themes.
Yeah.
So I'm like halfway expecting that.
The feeling I get is that we might, and it's hard to tell, but is that we're kind of potentially in a world that's sort of like Buffy, where people are in denial about the supernatural and maybe they haven't experienced it yet. But when it happens and they realize that it happens, they might not talk about it, but they know deep down that it's there. We had that in season 4 Buffy with the whole class protector thing with the umbrella.
That was season 3, yeah.
Whenever the heck that had 3. Oh yeah, that's right. Smallville went all the way to 4 with the high school thing, but she was a sophomore in season 1. That's it. But anyway, so yeah, see, I gotta keep all these shows in my head. but yeah, so that's kind of maybe the sense I get, and that this is a heightened world in that we have this zombie thing that's happened. We'll see if any other crazy supernatural stuff can exist in this world. I know that in the comics, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I haven't read them, I'm pretty sure in the comics there were vampires. So we'll see if, or at least there's a title of a trade that has vampire in it. So I'm assuming there's vampires in that world. So we'll see if that kind of stuff can exist here. But right now it seems like it's just a heightened comic book world. In order to have that kind of stuff, people kind of act normal, and then they just all talk way more snarky than they do in the real world. Yeah,
that's possible. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention this last week, but the show has an intro.
And I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
Great.
First of all, you know how much I love intros, Steve.
Yes. Yeah, so do I. Intros are great.
It's not any longer than the Constantine one, and it's not a credit sequence. I always think that's weird when we do kind of have an intro, but it's not. But we don't put the credits in there, so we still have to watch all the credits through the opening scene. But I like that it's got a theme song. I like the theme song. I think it fits really well with it. And again, it's very Buffy and Angel, where it's it's got that kind of. No, I don't want to say hard rock vibe. What am I thinking? Punk or grunge? Kind of punk.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And it just I don't know. It needs that, right? Like I wanna be able to go around and hum a song that makes me like, oh yeah, I watched that show.
Yeah. The song's the perfect vibe for the show.
So anyway, yes, you're right. I love that. What else do you want to bring up about this one? We see our villain again for a minute, and he has a super creepy intro. I loved his whole centerfold for zombie porn line. That was pretty funny. And then he's missing for the whole episode, and I'm like, oh, what are we not going to do anything with him? And then I think he was there just so we could bookend with him, and he wouldn't feel like he came out of nowhere at the end.
Maybe, yeah. That guy more and more just makes me think of Spike from Buffy and Angel. He's great. I really like that actor.
He definitely has his own thing too.
Oh yeah, he does. If he maybe just look like that either I haven't read the comics either, so I'm not sure if he's like off the page, but he looks like it's an homage to Spike, and he's got his own style to him. He's got great dialogue because everyone on the show is sarcastic and witty, but he's got like his own type of humor.
Yeah. I tell you what. Why don't we go ahead and because we're already kind of over. So why don't we go ahead and if he's listening, Dan, bring Dan back in, and we're going to hi Dan. We're going to figure out what everybody's favorite shows were this week, and we might answer a few more questions. So if you guys have questions about other things going on in superhero TV and screen lore, culture, culture-ness, leave your questions and comments right now. We'll try to get to them. 2.5 Daughters says, "Am I the only one who watches iZombie?" I'm thinking you might be.
I hope not.
It seems like a lot of folks aren't. So anyway, so that's probably why I cut that a little bit short, because clearly folks are not as interested in that. But Steve and I are loving it. So and I know that. and I know that Manos has been as well. So anyway, let's go ahead and find out what the winner was this week. So Steve, what would you say of the four? Obviously Dan's a mulligan. He watched Flash, and that was what would you say is the best show we watched this week, Steve?
Between Flash and iZombie, it's a little bit of a closer race than it was last week because I love the Tricksters so much in this episode, but I gotta go with iZombie.
I feel like it would be disingenuous not to say Flash, just because Mark Hamill really turned in a great performance. And I mean, I expected that, and there was a novelty to it, but it also gave us kind of a much different flavor than we have for some other things. It was really nice to get a villain, maybe even kind of a couple villains with the two of them that didn't have powers and could be so much fun and have so much personality, because we've had a lot of really lame throwaway villains. That's all Dan likes to complain about.
Yeah, I loved that by traveling through time, we put one of the no personality villains in the totally immoral prison that Barry has in Star Labs, and we replaced him with interesting villains in the next two episodes.
Something else we didn't mention when we were talking about Flash earlier is that isn't it interesting that I was saying with the whole time travel thing, they're going to get us right back to status quo. In the next episode, they found interesting ways to push the status quo forward a little bit and not make it such a cop-out. And now Eddie already knows. So I mean, like, they're going out of their way to not to not make that too much of a tease, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, they defied our expectations in a really positive way, and I like that a lot. Because we were all like, they're going to do this really typical thing, and, it would be like Smallville, and it ended up being much better than that, so.
The group majoritively agrees with us, guys. The Flash got 50% of the vote and managed to win and take it. Arrow got 40% of the vote this week, and iZombie got just 10%, and S.H.I.E.L.D. got nothing.
Wow, okay.
You get nothing! Now, so that's the poll for this week. Thanks everybody who voted, and now we're going to take a look at a few more comments and talk for just 5 or 10 more minutes. Thanks everybody for being here. Really hope you've been enjoying the show, and now we're going to answer some other things. Oh, Dan, Surtur is definitely in Ragnarok. I didn't see you wrote. That's awesome.
No, I don't know that they've confirmed it, but it's going to. That's what the movie's going to be.
Wasn't there a reference to him in Dark World? I've only seen that movie once. I'm not sure, but I think there was.
I think we might have lost Dan. Dan, are you with us?
Lava-y. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Okay, you cut out
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Oh, okay. The logo for Thor: The Dark World is so lava-y that I don't see how it's anyone other than Surtur if that's what they're playing towards, who the villain's going to be with that logo. And that's the only way you get bigger than Malekith, and what he's doing is you bring the guy that wants to end all of existence with the Twilight Sword. So I don't see where else you would go, especially since they've been doing the Simonson Thor stuff in all of the Marvel movies, not just the Thor ones. I mean, there's stuff from Simonson's run in the Avengers movie. So I would be very surprised if that's where if they go in a different direction with that movie. And I hope the third Thor movie is better than the first two, because of all the solo movies, the Thor ones have been the least enjoyable to me overall. Not that I think they're awful and unwatchable, but they've been the most mediocre of all of them, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed.
I totally agree with you. Shazam says, hey, Cap, what do you think of Hot Girl and Rip Hunter being cast in the Arrow Flash spinoff? I think that show is going to have so many characters in it. Have they learned nothing from this season of Arrow? Too many characters, you guys! Stop it!
Learn something from Gotham, where you credit an actor as main characters and he only appears once in the pilot.
Yeah, it's like okay, so we don't want to. So what we want to do is try to make a show a little bit less convoluted and confusing. So what we're going to do is we're going to add Hawkman. Just saying. We'll see. Obviously, I'm not passing judgment yet, but 2.5 Doctor, what do you think about Arrow not being able to use Deadshot and Deathstroke because of Suicide Squad? Oh, is that what's happened? Have we written them out because of Suicide Squad? Well, I think that we need to knock off all that rights mumbo jumbo stuff because we've got two Screen Thing and TV stuff that's about to really want everybody in the DC universe. We need to just lift an embargo and let it all happen. I mean, like, because what, are there going to be characters in Gotham we can't use now? I mean, well, they want to use everybody anybody's ever heard of, so...
I mean, unless they plan on cutting all of their TV shows short, they should just stop embargoing characters just because they're on film.
Yes.
Those are weekly shows. Movies are every 2 years. It's a better way to get exposure so you can add characters to movies that you otherwise wouldn't be able to use. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, what are we just afraid people are going to be confused about different versions? Is that what it is? I don't know what it is.
I mean, just make an origin movie then, and then people will have no way to be confused.
Let's just answer a couple more real quick. Folks are mentioning Daredevil on Friday. That's super exciting, of course. What we're going to do with that is, and Dan, I don't know if I've told you this, but my plan with Daredevil is we're going to give everybody a couple weeks to binge it. I want to make sure that the audience has time to watch it, that we all have time to watch it. I'm sure that that the three of us and Manos are probably going to, the day that it uploads, do nothing but watching that show until we're finished watching it. But what we'll do is we'll give it a couple weeks. We might even have time. Some of us might even have time to watch some of it more than one time, and then we will devote an entire hour for Primetime Crisis that week, no matter what else is going on, to Daredevil. So that's the plan right now, and we might even talk a little bit longer that night, so that we can, say what we want to say. But anyway, that's our plan right now.
Can't wait for that show.
Yeah, I'm incredible. All the new trailers that they've been putting out are just, it's so cool. I'm really pleased with how it looks.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Red Letter and Tilly says, Dan, there was a theory that, I'm assuming he's talking about Surtur, that he was in the collector's place, but I don't think it was really him. I don't know how you'd fit him in there, but all right.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Isn't Surtur enormous?
Yes, he is.
CryptoFreak, hey Cap, are you ever going to do the Incredible Hulk TV show? I will probably eventually watch the whole thing and do a top 10. Dan is still working on a lengthy review, written review on the pilot that is supposed to be posted to Geekvolution sometime before 2017, so look forward to that.
Yeah, I've just been really busy. I haven't had time to edit it. I have it all written and recorded. I just have to get all the pictures and edit it together. Taking stills of it and watching through the episode again has been the thing holding back the progress on that. But I love that show. It's one of, if not my favorite, superhero television show. It's fantastic. Not all the episodes are of the caliber of the ones that are really amazing, but it has enough really amazing episodes that I can say with confidence that I love it. It's a great show.
William Parcell, if they reintroduce S.H.I.E.L.D. in Cap 3 with Rogers as the director, how do you think it will affect the show? I really think that as time goes on, if the show keeps getting renewed, we're going to keep trying to do different things with S.H.I.E.L.D. in the movies and making the TV show more and more superfluous. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that would just confirm the show's irrelevance. I mean, at that point, just don't make it Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Make it something else that doesn't bend to the will of what the movies need them to do.
Yeah, we're just obsessing with the name of it at this point, right? Like, let's call it Agents of Coulson, and then we can take Coulson and try to make some kind of crazy acronym. Yeah, let's do Agents of Phil. Let's do one more. Well, a couple more real quick, because I just want to answer this real fast. Reem, Lucid Dreams, why is Browncoat Eric so distant from us? I actually talked to Eric a couple hours ago and asked him if he would come on the show and talk about Arrow this week, and he said, actually, I would have plenty of time. I'd be happy to do it, but I'm 3 episodes behind. So that's the only reason he's not here. Everybody misses him. I'm going to take this portion of the show tonight, I put it in audio, send it to Eric, and say, look, at least like 3 people live are complaining that you're not here. You're a slacker, and they love him, and they love you, and you need to be here. So yeah. Anyway, Casey, have you watched any of the Power series yet? I really want to. I wish it was on a different platform so we could do it here on Crisis. It is an impossible thing to get and watch, and I'm sure that once it is on DVD, I will, or maybe I'll pull a panel together and get at least a couple of us to do a little bit of an overview for you.
Eric loves that show, and I know Manos loves the comics, so it looks like it could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we might be able to, if we can get you guys to watch it, we might be able to get 3 or 4 of us in there for it. Well, guys, thanks as always for being with me. Sure,
thanks for having us.
No problem.
We're gonna go ahead and bid you farewell right now. Steve, Dan, and I are about to go on and do a super secret, exciting project that we're not gonna tell you what it is. You'll see it when we post it. That's how we are here at Geekvolution. You'll see it when we post it. And anyway. Thanks as always for watching. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central with lots more exciting TV and superhero show goodness. I am Captain Logan, and this was Dan, typing mad fool Dan Torrey.
Thanks for watching, guys.
And beware the Steve Backseat.
See you, everybody.
See you later, folks.